Regret or a way to procrastinate because of bankruptcy? Harry and Meghan's truce is too late. Today, a royal source has spoken out to claim that Harry and Meghan are considering returning to the royal family. They are apparently wanting to call a truce. I am never going to believe this is true, though. See, truce is not only cynical and a deliberate misrepresentation of things, it's obviously a trap. The choice of this word just proves that even as they claim to ask for help and end hostilities, Meghan and Harry, aka the tramp and the traitor, are not being honest. Okay, let's think about what a truce is. A truce is a cessation of hostilities, where both sides agree to just stop. Truce would mean that at least two reciprocating antagonists have to exist, but in fact, these attacks have been entirely one-sided. And most importantly, the word truce, and this is exactly why they're using the word truce requires each side to acknowledge and accept some blame, so the royal family, in their minds, would have to be equally at fault. So could it be any coincidence then that this is exactly what Meghan has always wanted? She's always wanted to be equal to the king. Truce is also a word that brings up a lot of emotions. It basically means the same thing as peace and love and reaching out. So really, whoever calls the truce is claiming the moral high ground. And at the same time, if somebody refuses a truce, then they assume the mantle of the aggressor. It's basically a case of good versus bad. This means that claiming to ask for a truce is a win-win for Meghan and pretty awkward and uncomfortable for the king, because it's not like the palace can either agree or reject a truce, as the former response accepts blame, and at the same time, the latter would make them look so nasty, it would make it appear that the royal family wants to keep on fighting with Meghan and Harry. It's quite a dilemma, and it demonstrates the depraved cunning of Meghan Markle. It just demonstrates how malevolent and how dishonest she is, but at the same time, she can be quite sly. She is incredibly dangerous. And we've also got to compliment the current PR people working for her. And it's pretty easy to see the simple wisdom of the royal family strategy of just refusing to engage with the two of them. They're just continuing to ignore them, and that is the best strategy. Maintaining this stance is going to make sure that any truce nonsense quickly disappears. It's important that the palace continues to ignore them. Because realistically, the solution lies entirely in the hands of Meghan and Harry. It always has, and they have to know that. If they wanted to, they could just stop right now. To achieve a truce, no communication is actually necessary with the palace, and the royal family doesn't need to do anything, and so they don't really owe them any response. Think about it this way: if somebody has been constantly stabbing you in the back, you're not going to thank them when they finally stop. So the only thing that is needed for a truce is for Meghan and Harry to stop their lying, to stop going after the royal family. And maybe they could send the message along to their chatbots and their sugars. Maybe they could stop the attacks too. But at the end of the day, I honestly don't even care that much. Now, this truce is being floated out there because the lawyers, the Hollywood bigwigs, and the PR people have run off with the money. Meghan and Harry are desperate. And desperate people will consider all kinds of things. Lately, Meghan has been out merging dog leads, and as for coming back to the UK, as I've said before, they don't have any place to come back to. First of all, they would have to either rent somewhere or buy something to live in. Other than that, anywhere they stay in the UK could only be a visit. It just continues to surprise me how delusional they really are. I mean, do they really think that calling a truce is going to erase the memory and the effects of everything they've done? They're acting like a couple of little kids, starting a fight they can't win, and then once it becomes clear they're going to lose, that's when they decide to call a truce. Unfortunately, it looks like they have stirred a sleeping giant. Truth of the matter is, as a nation, Brits are actually pretty easygoing. They will put up with a whole lot. But after a while, the most easygoing Brit is gonna get fed up. And people are no longer tolerant or forgiving anymore of Meghan and Harry. Maybe there are members of the royal family and the royal household who would welcome the two of them back, but there are many others who wish they would stay away forever. I think it's safe to assume that the population of the UK is similarly divided, although there are some opinion polls that are putting their popularity even lower than that of Andrew, the Duke of York. Now, I think the general consensus is that maybe they could come back, but only as private citizens with no public role whatsoever. They shouldn't receive any public funding, and of course, they shouldn't live in any grace and favor home. I know, they are still technically members of the royal family, but they have nothing to do with the monarchy, and they're not the public faces of the royal family any longer. They've also said some really scary stuff about William and Catherine and their kids, so they need to be kept far away from the Wales family. They are a danger to them. They have proven that through what they've said and what they've done. Now, personally, if it were up to me, of course, I wouldn't let Meghan back in. Harry, maybe, but he would need to go through rehab and he would have to stay in a private psychiatric facility for a long time until he has a real firm understanding of reality, and he would have to take whatever medication is prescribed to him, and he would not be allowed to use any recreational drugs. Honestly, folks, I don't believe the royal family would allow either of them to be a working royal ever again. Nobody can trust them, and the truth is, most people don't like them either. Harry has been outed as an idiot, and a very emotionally disturbed person too, with a real substance abuse problem. Meghan is also incredibly disliked, and she harms everybody she meets, so why would she ever get the right to be a working royal again? Meghan only cares about what she can gain in the short term, and so that really prevented her from being able to see the bigger picture. She wouldn't have made all these stupid errors if she knew how the money and assets of the royal family were distributed, and that placement in the line of succession means everything. Neither Meghan nor Harry has the personality or the intelligence necessary to be a successful influencer, and people like the big celebrities out there would never want to be associated with people like them. If Meghan understood how the money was distributed within the royal family before she married Harry, I don't think the marriage ever would have happened. But I believe they do think they can come back and everybody's just going to forgive and forget. They said before that stupid documentary came out and the book was released that after this stuff came out and after everybody understood their side of the story, that they would be willing to accept an olive branch from the family and they would want to resume family relationships like nothing ever happened. Because, according to them, their story was the true story, the right story. It didn't matter what the rest of everybody saw and heard with our own eyes and ears. I mean, this is the same kind of thinking that convinced them they could easily change their name to Spencer and keep the Prince and Princess titles for him and the children, and the Sussex titles for him and her. In addition to being the highest titled Spencer, they would take over all the family's money, the titles, the homes, etc. I mean, they thought that by changing their names, they would be entitled to the Spencer lineage. What a couple of dum-dums. So I think the royal family knows what to do, just keep on ignoring them, and then also not allow the two of them to come back, especially not Meghan Markle. Now, if Harry does come back, Meghan's just going to keep in touch with him all the time, and the problems are only going to get worse and worse. I also believe that if Harry hears that his return is not going to be as a working royal, he's not going to want to come back. Now, if Harry wants to come back, I think one condition should be that he has to own up to the fact that his kids came from a surrogate. A requirement would be that he tells the whole story when it comes to the scam they put forth in order to pull this off. And he would need to understand that he's basically going to be in the same position as his disgraced Uncle Andrew. So they can come up with whatever ideas they want to. At the end of the day, whether or not they come back to the UK, and whether or not they're welcomed back, is up to the royal family and the people of Britain. And I think most people would not welcome them back. Because really, why would they want to come back to a place where most people so dislike them? And don't be afraid to click the subscribe button to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in, have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back to see you all tomorrow.